Scarborough Shoal is a small, isolated ring of reefs and rocks in the vast expanse of the South China Sea, surrounded by turquoise waters and teeming marine life. It lies about 120 nautical miles from the Philippine island of Luzon, well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone as defined by international law. Despite this proximity, China, which is much farther away, claims the shoal as its own territory, citing historical rights that are hotly contested. The atoll itself may seem unremarkable at first glance, but its location is crucial. It's a rich fishing ground that has sustained generations of Filipino families, providing food and income for coastal communities. Tensions escalated dramatically in 2012 when a standoff ended with China taking de facto control of the shoal, and since then, Chinese Coast Guard ships have routinely blocked Filipino fishermen from accessing these traditional waters. This ongoing standoff has transformed Scarborough Shoal into one of the region's most dangerous flashpoints, drawing international attention and concern. For the Philippines, the shoal is not just a cluster of rocks. It's a vital part of national territory, a symbol of sovereignty, and a key source of livelihood for thousands. For China, it's a strategic asset, central to its ambition to dominate the South China Sea and expand its influence across Asia. If China were to build a military outpost here, it would complete a triangle of bases, giving Beijing control over vital trade routes and the ability to project power deep into Southeast Asia. The shoal has become a symbol of a much larger struggle. Will international law, diplomacy, and peaceful negotiation prevail, or will military power and force decide the South China Sea's future? The Philippines seeks a peaceful legal resolution through international courts and alliances with other nations. China, on the other hand, prefers to enforce its claims with naval power, patrols, and a growing military presence. This fundamental disagreement keeps Scarborough Shoal in a state of perpetual tension, a small reef with the potential to spark a much larger conflict that could draw in neighboring countries. The world is watching closely, as the outcome here could set the tone for the entire region and influence the balance of power in Asia for years to come. The stakes are far greater than the rocks and reefs themselves. What happens at Scarborough Shoal could shape the future of the South China Sea and the peace of the wider world. China recently announced ambitious plans to establish a national nature reserve at Scarborough Shoal, which it calls Huangyan Dao, firmly claiming the territory as its own despite ongoing disputes. Officially, the plan is presented as a move to protect the fragile marine ecosystem, but in reality, it would place the entire area under direct Chinese administration and control. Beijing frames this initiative as responsible environmental stewardship, arguing that years of overfishing and human activity have severely stressed the local environment and biodiversity. The proposed reserve would strictly regulate fishing and tourism, supposedly to allow coral reefs and fish stocks to recover, but also restricting access for local communities. On the surface, it sounds like a positive step for conservation, but the timing and broader context are telling a different story. This move fits neatly into China's pattern of gray zone operations, actions that assert control and influence without triggering open conflict or war. By declaring a nature reserve, China gains a legal-sounding justification to block foreign vessels, including Filipino fishing boats that have relied on these waters for generations. The plan remains vague in its details, but the message is unmistakable. China is asserting sovereignty through administrative and bureaucratic means. Many observers see this move as less about genuine conservation and more about consolidating territorial control and influence in the region. It's a clever, strategic way to change the facts on the water, gradually pushing the Philippines and other claimants further out of the disputed area. Ultimately, the nature reserve is about flags and power projection, not just about protecting fish and coral reefs. The world recognizes the far-reaching implications, even if China insists it's simply about environmental protection and stewardship. The Philippines responded immediately, lodging a strong diplomatic protest and demanding China abandon the plan. Manila sees this as a thinly veiled attempt to legitimize China's occupation, not a genuine conservation effort. The Department of Foreign Affairs called it a violation of international law and Philippine sovereignty. National Security Advisor Eduardo Ano described the plan as illegal and a pretext for creeping invasion. Philippine officials argue that China's environmentalism is a cover for expansion, especially given its history of reef destruction elsewhere. The protest reflects deep mistrust. Every Chinese move is now viewed with suspicion. Manila insists any conservation must be led by the Philippines, the rightful legal authority. The government vows to use all diplomatic and legal means to challenge China's plan. The message is clear. The Philippines will not stand by as its rights are eroded. This is about more than a nature reserve, it's about defending national sovereignty. China remains defiant, insisting Scarborough Shoal is its inherent territory, and that establishing a reserve is a domestic matter. Chinese officials dismiss Manila's complaints, claiming environmental protection is their sovereign right. Beijing's justification is rooted in historical claims, represented by the controversial 9-dash line, rejected by international tribunals, but still central to China's stance. State media and experts frame the reserve as responsible stewardship, aiming to shift the narrative from territorial dispute to conservation. China seeks international legitimacy, painting Philippine protests as unreasonable. Ultimately, China rejects the Philippines' legal position and international rulings, relying on its physical control. The message possession is power, and China will enforce its claims regardless of outside pressure. The Nature Reserve Plan is a direct challenge to the rules-based order in the region. A landmark 2016 ruling by the Permanent Court of Arbitration rejected China's expansive claims in the South China Sea, including the 9-dash line. The tribunal found no legal basis for China's claims and affirmed traditional fishing rights for multiple countries at Scarborough Shoal. It ruled that China had unlawfully blocked Filipino fishermen, strengthening the Philippines' case against the nature reserve. China, however, rejected the ruling outright, calling it waste paper, and refusing to recognize its authority. This legal deadlock is at the heart of the ongoing conflict. China's reserve plan directly challenges the tribunal's findings on shared access. For Manila, upholding the ruling is about defending international law, not just Scarborough Shoal. The dispute is now a test of whether international law can restrain powerful nations. The world is watching to see if legal principles or might will prevail. Scarborough Shoal has become a symbol of this global struggle. China's conservation claims ring hollow to many, given its record of environmental destruction in the South China Sea. Massive dredging and island building have devastated coral reefs, while military installations now dominate former marine habitats. Philippine officials point to this history as evidence of China's hypocrisy. China counters by accusing foreign fishermen of destructive practices, using this to justify its reserve. But the scale of China's damage far exceeds that of small-scale fishing. Both sides now use environmental arguments to advance territorial claims. In reality, the ecosystem is caught in a geopolitical crossfire. The true environmental threat is overshadowed by the struggle for control. The Nature Reserve Plan is far more than just an environmental project. It's a calculated, strategic move in the ongoing contest for dominance in the South China Sea. By framing the initiative as a conservation effort, China is able to pursue its broader geopolitical ambitions under the radar of international scrutiny. If China enforces the reserve, it sets a powerful precedent for using legal-sounding, seemingly benign measures to solidify its control over highly contested maritime areas, all while avoiding direct confrontation. This tactic could easily be repeated at other disputed reefs and islands, gradually expanding China's influence and presence across the region without resorting to open conflict or military escalation. For the Philippines, this is seen as creeping annexation. China can justify a larger, more permanent presence under the guise of environmental protection, making it harder for others to object. Military analysts warn that the reserve could be a prelude to building a permanent base, which would complete a strategic triangle for China and further entrench its military reach in the region. This would put the Philippines, including its capital Manila, well within range of Chinese military power, raising serious security concerns for the country and its neighbors. The strategy is often described as salami slicing, a series of incremental steps, each seemingly minor, but together they add up to major territorial and strategic gains. Each move may appear small or insignificant on its own, but collectively they gradually shift the balance of power in China's favor, making it increasingly difficult to reverse. The reserve plan is just one such slice, advancing China's territorial claims under the peaceful cover of environmental stewardship, while subtly changing the facts on the ground. The Philippines and its allies now face a difficult and complex challenge in responding to these moves, as the stakes in the South China Sea continue to rise. The United States, as a treaty ally of the Philippines, is deeply invested in the Scarborough Shoal dispute. The 1951 Mutual Defense Treaty commits both nations to aid each other in case of armed attack, including incidents in the South China Sea. This means a clash at Scarborough Shoal could draw in the U.S., raising the stakes dramatically. Washington has warned Beijing against aggressive moves and increased its military presence in the region. U.S. Navy operations challenge China's claims and assert freedom of navigation. Joint exercises with the Philippines signal a united front and deterrence. The U.S. supports a peaceful, law-based resolution, backing the 2016 arbitration ruling. But its involvement also risks escalating great power competition. The future of Scarborough Shoal is now entangled in the broader U.S.-China rivalry. Scarborough Shoal is more than a local dispute. It's a microcosm of the global contest over the international order. The core issue: will rules and laws prevail, or will power decide outcomes? The South China Sea is vital for global trade and energy, making its stability a worldwide concern. Any conflict here could disrupt commerce and threaten international security. The Nature Reserve announcement highlights the complex mix of sovereignty, environment, law, and strategy. With both sides entrenched, the risk of escalation remains dangerously high. A peaceful solution requires respect for international law and meaningful dialogue. The fate of this small reef may signal whether the 21st century is shaped by cooperation or conflict.